Welcome into SportsZone All Access here on this Wednesday, March the 4th. We've kind of circled this date on our calendars for a while now, and we knew it was coming up. We didn't know how quickly it was going to come up. That's not true. Ian and I have been through this. We knew how quickly it was going to be here. And before we blinked, here it is. And today's kind of like the soft opening for it. You know, there's only a couple of games. There's no local teams from our perspective. But it's still the kickoff to the Summit League. And then tomorrow, boom, 4 games, quarterfinals. Here we go. It's busy time.
I mean, it's such a big deal now because team seasons are going to end starting today. And so that elevates the expectations, the excitement, the nerves, and just the energy in the building, which will make for a really fun environment.
Yes, it will. Here's the women's bracket starting today at 4:30. Omaha and North Dakota will meet. Omaha, give them a little credit. They took a long time to win their first conference game in the Summit League, and now they jumped themselves to the 8 and have been playing pretty decent basketball over the stretch, though. Ian, kind of an interesting thing here, and it's what happens when you're the 8-9 seed is the winner gets the number 1 team. So no matter what, whoever wins today is going to have a tough one tomorrow against the Bison.
They will, and an interesting thing with the schedule is that you see that NDSU quarterfinal game, the second quarterfinal game. Normally you see the 1 seed, and they have that first quarterfinal game, but because the winner of the 8-9 will be playing the Bison in less than 24 hours after that game ends, that's why that one gets slid to the second start time on Thursday, but still should be fun. That's really when we see the top teams in the Summit League tip off with SDSU and North Dakota State as the 1 and 2 seeds playing on Thursday.
Kelsey, is there any of these first matchups that we know that you're kind of looking forward to as we get ready? I know it's tomorrow is when the quarterfinals get going, but as you kind of look at them ahead, and we'll preview SDSU's games coming up tomorrow, what are your kind of thoughts just on, one of the games we should keep an eye out for?
I mean, we talked about this a little while back on Countdown to Summit League, but I've got my eye on those bottom 2 games on the 5th, SDSU, Kansas City, USD, Denver, mostly because we very well may end up with a State U rematch again in the postseason in the semifinals should both SDSU and USD win. I think both are going to be exciting games. The way that the Jackrabbits have been playing as of late is the Jackrabbit basketball that fans are used to seeing, and USD is trying to figure out, kind of wipe the slate clean and get back to where they started, and it'll be exciting.
Well, here's some of the look. We announced these yesterday on All Access, but, it feels just right to bring this up again for the All-Conference awards. Avery Coonan, the Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. Carrington Asp wins a couple awards as well. Jory Collins. And, it seemed like, Ian, that this is basically an NDSU sweep outside a Newcomer of the Year. And yes, they were the better team for the majority of the year. It's kind of interesting. When's the last time that SDSU went over on this piece of the board, especially when they've been the best team in the conference the last 3 weeks?
That's a really good point, that it's been a long time since we see SDSU not win one of these awards. It was a 2-horse race for Player of the Year between Avery Coonan and Brooklyn Meyer, and it was just that hot start that NDSU raced out to. And I think they impacted a lot of voters with that win in Brookings, the way that they really dominated and took it to SDSU. It seemed like that maybe determined a lot, even though SDSU closed the season as the hottest team, and the way Brooklyn Meyer closed the year specifically was really impressive.
Well, she finishes the year as the number 1 leading scorer in the conference at 22 points per game, the only player in the conference averaging more than 20 points per game. And, we've seen what she's done the last few weeks. I mean, go back to the Oral Roberts game. She put up 44 just to barely win that game. So I would certainly like to think if they unveiled what the voting was, that it was neck and neck. I really would like to think that, because I do not think Coonan and was a runaway with it this year. And I mean, we'll see come Summit League tournament time. We'll see, because the Jackrabbits looked good up in Fargo. Let's talk about the men's side of the bracket. And Oral Roberts will take on Kansas City. Those two have kind of just been at the bottom the entire year, though Oral Roberts, a little momentum as of late. They beat Kansas City. They beat USD. They even beat Denver in a big upset this last week. So they have themselves some nice wins as of late. But again, Kelsey, here's NDSU sitting right in front of them. Whoever wins is going to get Dave Richmond and one of the better Bison teams that he's had in the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm really excited to see the men's side of the tournament play out specifically because I think we're going to see a lot closer games than maybe we anticipate. I mean, I'm looking at this schedule and saying, oh, I could literally say I'm looking forward to that. I have my eye on every single one of these games. And really, it's going to be who's going to get the Bison and who is going to give them the biggest run for their money.
Yeah, certainly with that too. And Ian, quick thought. Some people are probably wondering, SDSU, they were playing better these last couple of weeks. There's no arguing that. But now they get St. Thomas. It's a tough ask for them.
Yeah, it certainly is. It seemed like when there was that logjam from 4 through 7, everyone was trying to get in that 4, 5, or 6 range to avoid playing St. Thomas. SDSU, of course, getting the bad end of the draw. They're the 7th seed and have to match up against the preseason favorite and one of the 2 best teams all season long.
Certainly, and let's just quickly look at the all-conference awards that we saw announced on Tuesday. Player and newcomer of the year, Carson Johnston. He was great for the Denver team there. Defensive player of the year, Eli King. Sixth man of the year, Noah Feddersen. Nick Janowski of St. Thomas, and then Dave Richmond. Some diversity in this one, Ian, as opposed to the women's. We see a few teams involved in this one. Only one repeat with NDSU winning a couple awards. And that's kind of what we've seen on the men's side is a little more parity than what we've seen in the women's typically.
Yes, but impressive also that when you think of what this NDSU team, their success this season, it was because they weren't that balanced, and that speaks to them getting the Coach of the Year and the Sixth Man of the Year. Those 2 awards speak to balance, and that's why the Bison #1 in the conference standings and winning those 2 awards.
Certainly, and for SDSU, they did not win any of those awards. They didn't have anyone first team either. USD did have a first-teamer in Cameron Fens, who was certainly fantastic this year. Well, Josh Fenton came and joined us. We're going to have a conversation and a good long interview with him next.
Welcome back to SportsZone All Access. Well, we have a special guest here at the KELOLAND Plus desk, and it's Summit League Commissioner Josh Fenton. Josh, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy week to come in and chat with us.
Yeah, it's always great to be with you. Thanks for having me, Ian.
Well, Josh, we typically talk to you the week of the Summit League tournament because it's such a big deal here, and now you take the time to get to see the studio. Pretty exciting, right?
It is. We get to do this more often. This is really exciting.
Well, also really exciting is the Summit League tournament just a day or 2 away. It all begins on Wednesday. And just what are your initial impressions of what we've seen so far this season throughout the Summit League?
Well, first off, I say to people, it just feels like yesterday that we were around the first week in November when we were starting the basketball season. And here we are, completing the month of February. Obviously, the regular season is over, and we're here in tournament time and, conference tournaments. And, in a couple of weeks from now, we'll be watching the NCAA tournament. And so it's always an exciting time of year, exciting time for our staff. This event is a significant event within our calendar. Obviously, it's a significant event for the Sioux Falls community. And so we're just really excited to get to this point and look forward to the ball being tipped off on Wednesday afternoon.
Well, let's take a look at it. First, on the women's side, here's the bracket. What have you seen from the teams this season? NDSU, first time as the Summit League regular season champions, but then they have a couple of traditional powers right behind them in SDSU and USD.
Yeah, NDSU and Jory Collins have had a fantastic season. One loss, and that loss came last week up in Fargo when the Jackrabbits went up there and got them. And the Bison had come down to Brookings earlier in the year and won down there, which is obviously very hard to do. But Jory and his team have done a fantastic job. And AJ and the Jackrabbits have also had an incredible season. And then the Yotes right there behind them. And so those 3 have have been very successful, but ORU's had a good year. And so, I think we're going to have great basketball games when we get to Wednesday, and then obviously and eventually Thursday and Friday with the quarterfinals. The other thing with NDSU and South Dakota State is they're two teams that are within the top 50 of a couple of the main metrics that the NCAA Tournament Committee uses to evaluate teams for at-large considerations, and that's the net ranking and another ranking called wins above bubble, the WAB. And we are one of two mid-major conferences to have two teams within the top 50 of those rankings. And so an opportunity potentially to have an at-large team into the tournament, but look forward to the Summit League tournament first and foremost.
Well, that was one of my next questions that I was going to ask you. What do you think the chances are that the Summit League can get two teams in? It seems like it would have to be that NDSU gets tripped up and someone else comes through to win the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very possible. As I just said, the Bison and the Jackrabbits are there right now from a metric standpoint of at-large consideration. And so myself, our Deputy Commissioner, Minnie K. Larson, who oversees basketball, and our Assistant Commissioner for Communications, Ryan Powell, meet with committee members that are representing the Summit League, and they also represent other conferences. And we've talked about how NDSU and South Dakota State should be considered for at-large consideration. And so I think there's some agreement around that. Obviously, there's results to be played throughout the entire country before we get to that point. But I think our chances potentially for two are definitely there.
Both NDSU and SDSU sit atop many of the mid-major rankings. Let's jump over to the men's side now and see. Correct me if you've seen this before. North Dakota State at the top of the Summit League brackets, both on the men's and women's side. For David Richmond's team, it's the first time in a dozen years that they're the number one seed.
Yeah, Dave and his crew have done a really nice job this year. Even going back to the non-conference season, when sometimes it's hard to win, especially in this era when your roster's turning over quite frequently. They had some success in the non-conference season, and obviously we're able to sustain that success throughout the regular season. But right there behind them is the Tommies of St. Thomas, and they've played extremely well. Johnny Tower is an excellent coach, like we have all great coaches in our league. And so those two have kind of solidified themselves as the one and the two teams on the men's side. But after that, we have a tremendous amount of parity. Obviously, North Dakota's had a good year. USD has fought through a lot of different injuries, and Eric Peterson's done a good job there. Chris Crutchfield, defending Summit League champions, they'll be tough, and he'll have something, and their team will have something to say before it's all said and done. And so, we have a lot of parity, especially kind of through the middle portion of the standings on the men's side, and it's going to make for an exciting tournament.
It should certainly be. So much to be determined that final day of the regular season this past Saturday, but it all got sorted out, even with a three-way tie for fourth place. One other headline coming out of this Summit League tournament is that it'll be the final one for Denver. How do you approach that with the Pioneers exiting?
Well, first off, Denver on the men's side has done a nice job with Tim Bergstrasser in his first year. And so... And even on the women's side, a little better than where they've been these past couple of years. I believe they're playing on Friday, and so Denver's a member of the Summit League. Denver's a proud member of the Summit League, and we'll continue to provide their student athletes the great experiences that they deserve, whether it be the basketball championships or other sport championships that are yet to come in the spring. And so, definitely sad to see Denver depart and move to the West Coast Conference. But our treatment of them and their student athletes will be the same as any other student athlete, because it's all about the student athlete experience.
Now, of course, something that has been the last couple of years for the Summit League is the championship games on CBS Sports Network for both the men and the women, the men's semifinals as well. How much does that partnership help to expand the viewership and the eyeballs on the Summit League?
Well, it's about helping to build a brand. And when you talk about a national television network like CBS Sports Network, and some of the properties that they have on CBS Sports Network, including the Big 12, there are a lot of eyeballs around these games that are distributed. And so whether it be the regular season games, the 9 that we did in the regular season, 7 on the men's side, 2 on the women's side, or the tournament games, which include the men's semifinals and both championship game for the women and the men, it's an opportunity to help us tell our story nationally. And CBS does a great job with production. They spend a lot of time and attention around the production. When they go to halftime in the studio, they're talking about the game, they're talking about the championship. And then when we crown a champion, they stay there and showcase that on air. And so we've been really proud of the partnership and excited to obviously have them back this year and tell a great Summit League story in both the semifinals and the championship games.
Well, that's something that we've seen the last couple of years. Tell me, what's new about the Summit League tournament this year?
You know, there's always a few unique wrinkles. First off, you know, I alluded to this off the top. You know, it's our Super Bowl. I think it's also the community Super Bowl. This is the 18th championship that we've had in the city of Sioux Falls dating back to 2009. And the support from the city, whether it be the city of Sioux Falls, Experience Sioux Falls, the Sports Authority, downtown Sioux Falls has been tremendous. There's been a small group engaged on how do we activate different elements around the city to enhance the experience in the Summit League tournament. So a few things that you're going to see are some activation around the new Jacobson Plaza, which is a fantastic venue for just people to enjoy. The Arts Commission has gotten involved, and there's an artist that's been commissioned, Les Cotton, who will be in the convention center hallway between the Sheridan and the Premier Center at certain points during games throughout the weekend, where families and kids can come and design backboards. And then those backboards will be repurposed with Les's help to parks across the city. You know, there's downtown activations with restaurants and bars, specials themed around basketball. There's bus transportation from downtown via bus service to the Premier Center. And so, and then in the venue, a lot of familiar things. The DJ is back to add a lot of in-game atmosphere. There's a kid zone where kids can shoot some hoops on a Pop-A-Shot on the concourse. And, you know, there's a lot of school-themed food and drink and whatnot. And so it's really about elevating the fan experience. And we think fans are going to have a great time at the 2026 championship.
Well, I know we're looking forward to it from a coverage perspective. You mentioned in that answer right there the Sioux Falls Sports Authority and their role in putting on the Summit League tournament. How have they helped in aid and put together a tournament like this?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a great partnership with Thomas Lee and the Sports Authority. They help us in a variety of ways. They help us with securing volunteers, managing the volunteers, helping with practice sites for the teams as they practice, obviously, away from the Premier Center, and then really just any additional operational support that they provide. And so we've got a great partnership with them and have had a great partnership with the Sports Authority for many years. And so they're a very influential factor into the success of the Summit League basketball championships. And, you know, without them, I don't know that we could do a lot of what we do.
Certainly, and they're two great guys as well, in addition to all the hard work that they put in. Josh, one last thing to ask you before I let you get out of here. Ticketing. How can fans get tickets to the Summit League tournament?
Well, first off, we've got great tickets available. Not many, so make sure you get them if you haven't got them yet soon. Ticketmaster.com is very the easiest way to get there. So Ticketmaster.com, you can search Summit League, and it'll show up, and single session tickets and all session tickets are available. And so very affordable prices for both single session and all session. And so bring the family out, bring your friends out. It's a great time throughout the weekend, and we look forward to getting there.
Well, Commissioner Fenton, should certainly be a lot of fun out at the Premier Center this week. Championship games Sunday at 3 and 8. It's a great time. Thank you so much for coming into the studio today and joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
More SportsZone All Access coming up next.
And welcome back to SportsZone All Access. Great conversation there with the commissioner of the league, Josh Fenton. And now we're talking about the Sioux Falls Sports Authority. Ian, you had them in last week. We had a good interview with them, but now we kind of put a story together to really kind of help people realize how much work they do to make this tournament go smoothly every year.
It's amazing. They work about 4 months out for the Summit League tournament, and they always say they're prepping for their next event by putting on their current event. And one of their biggest every year is the tournament. And it's interesting to hear just how it has all come together for them to work on it.
The tournament brings 18 men's and women's basketball teams to Sioux Falls each March and has done so every year the last decade and a half, 8 years before the league moved its offices to South Dakota's biggest city. The Sports Authority served as the primary boots on the ground for the tournament until the conference moved here in 2018. And since then, the two have worked in tandem.
There is a lot of familiarity with our staffs and the roles that each of us have to do to put it on. And same thing with the Premier Center. It's certainly not just us, and it's not even just the Summit League. It's not just the venue. It's all of us collectively.
The championship sees players and coaches achieve their March Madness dreams. But the Sports Authority and Summit League approach the tournament as though it's part of the big dance as well.
What can we do to make this experience even better for not only those that are attending, but for the student athletes that are participating in the event? You want them to make this feel like it is like going to the NCAA tournament, right? You want that experience to be kind of on that exact same level, and that's what we strive for.
The Sports Authority primarily oversees the large volunteer force that works behind the scenes at the tournament.
We've got a great partnership with them and have had a great partnership with the Sports Authority for many years. And so they're a very influential factor into the success of the Summit League basketball championships. And, without them, I don't know that we could do a lot of what we do.
Yeah, great work from the Sports Authority and what they contribute to all of this. And we know how busy they are starting today. And then, oh, by the way, they have NCAA Division II wrestling and a hockey regional coming up later this month. Well, we're going to wrap up today's show when we come back. And welcome back to SportsZone All Access. Quickly wrapping up today's show. Here's what's coming up tonight. Omaha, North Dakota, Oral Roberts, Kansas City. All those first-round games, we'll have highlights of those. And then you have Regina Catholic taking on Rock Valley and Trainer taking on Central Lyon, both state tournament games. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll have highlights coming up tonight.
Bye, guys.